Though there's been a strong demand for housing in Verde Beach and Johnson Aggregates owns significant amounts of land to develop, the company has not developed phases 4 through 7 of their development. The company has relied on the same core crew of architects, planners, and engineers to develop the plans for their neighborhoods, and with the rapid development of Van Buren, they had not had the capacity to tackle both projects at once. Because of this, Johnson Aggregates lists phases 4 and 5 for sale, saving phases 6, 6B, and 7 for themselves, since they will be some of the most profitable due to the approved densities at the sites. Phases 4 and 5, on the other hand, will require extensive grading and a ton of infrastructure, reducing the profitability of the phases. Also, they've only been approved for lower density uses. One of Johnson Aggregates' home builders, Frank Kittleson, purchases the land for himself with the idea of becoming a developer. He would build on the choice lots himself and sell the less desirable lots to competitors. Working with engineers, he plats out his ideal neighborhood, but is warned that the cul-de-sac that he desires at the top of the ridge is too long and will likely be rejected by the city for safety reasons. Upon council review, they indeed reject the development for safety reasons, but let Frank know that there is a path to getting this approved. The council would be willing to provide up to 50% of the funding for a set of bridges linking Frank's land to the Lehman Institute, something that has been a pipe dream of some of the most visionary planners on city staff. Frank reaches out to the chancellor of the Lehman Institute to secure this funding, and the chancellor in turn uses donations from wealthy alumni to fund their portion of the project. From their perspective, the new high-end housing that Frank is proposing will be a powerful recruiting tool to attract top academic talent to the institute. In today's episode, we'll build these 2 new neighborhoods, as well as the 2 new bridges linking up these new neighborhoods to the Lehman Institute. We'll also develop a small park on the island and incorporate a unique building that I think will really fit nicely into the area. And if you like bridges, hit the like button. And if you prefer long cul-de-sacs, hit the like button for that too, and let me know which one you chose in the comments. And if you don't have anything to say, why not drop down your favorite emoji to show YouTube engagement? Without any further ado, let's jump right in. Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the city of Verde Beach, and I'm excited about today's episode because we're going to be building a lot today and finally coming back to our multi-phase development. We had a little bit of a detour with some DLCs, and I'm excited to be back to our story. So the very first thing I think we need to do here is really take an inventory of our site, because we're going to have a lot of grading here. So that's one of the things that's a bit of a challenge. You see that there's a pretty significant slope all the way down, and these bluffs right here are very, very sloped. So we're going to need to grade this out to create paths. I think the first mistake that you could make with a site like this would be just to run a road down here and start building. That's not what we're going to do. So let's start grading everything right off the bat. So I'm going to turn on the districts so we know where our districts lie. And we're going to have 2 terraces here. Around here, we're going to have 1 large terrace, and then we're going to terrace things up here as well. So what you can see we've done here is now we have 2 solid building pads, and we tried to follow the natural terrain to find a midpoint here. In this particular area, it gets very steep and it drops off in the center. So this would be an area with ponding if we weren't to do something about this. So I'm going to find a terrain height in the center and level this all out. Okay, so now we've got a nice flat building pad here, and if we turn this off, you can see that there is a substantial amount of work that we can do in here. Now we're going to need to flatten out some of these, or at least slope these a little bit better, but we'll do that down the line. We're also going to need to provide connectivity down to the high school, because all of the students up here will attend this school. So that connectivity is going to be incredibly key. Now up here, we've got a concern. The most likely path is that we're going to have a connection here, a collector connection, and another one right here. That said, that means that this is a very long road without any access. So the city is going to be very concerned about that and likely require some sort of access, maybe a little bit closer to what will be a long road with no connections. The reason for this is if you think about emergency access, if they were to enter over here and someone had a heart attack over here, that is a long stretch of road to drive to get over here. So that is a major concern. So anything you can do to shrink this up is going to be a very beneficial thing. And once this neighborhood is built, you'll never get that connection. So the city's going to fight tooth and nail. The EMS service, the fire service, the police department, they're all going to fight to ensure that this access, rather than being here, is over here. Now, this opens up an opportunity because I think that to make the land values make sense over here, we could have some sort of attraction in this area as well. So over here, to facilitate this, we're going to have a very dense neighborhood. It's not going to be like this. And sometimes you'll see areas like this where the character of the development changes very significantly, very quickly, and you might wonder why. And the reason for this is just simply that there are different financial circumstances associated with this development. So that's what we're going to look at here. So I want to look at this, and I really don't want to have to buy or sell soil at all. So that's going to be my guiding principle here. Do not buy or sell soil. You see that we're doing a fairly good job of keeping things fairly even in terms of soil availability. We are going to raise things up here, and we're going to do something special up here. And then right here is where his property ends. So we will expand this area out here. Now we're going to need to slope down so we can make a roadway connection, but we're going to do something really nice up here. Now we're going to look at this area, and we're going to go straight up here and increase our height a bit. And now we need to think about our crossing over here. And I just want to make sure that our heights make some sense. So I'm right mouse clicking up here to grab the height, and I'm going to, yeah, that's really a significant difference. So that's going to be a problem for us. So we'll choose this height over here. That's pretty similar to where we were already at. So for our roadway connection, woo! That is going to be a bit of a challenge. So we're going to be dropping a lot of height over here. I just wanted to test that because I want the bridges to be relatively flat. So on this side, we'll right mouse click over here and bring in our height to the island. And then over here, we're going to grade this down so that we can bring this height on this other side of the island. And then on the island, we'll right mouse click at the top, left at the bottom, and slope on the island. And there we go. We've pushed a lot of dirt around, but I think that we're in a pretty good place as far as this goes. So now let's lay out some of our roads. So we're going to go with our old handy dandy and trusty dirt roads. It's the right way to lay out a neighborhood. You at least have the tools available to you without making too much of a financial commitment. So on this side, it's pretty straightforward. We'll just make sure that we have all of our snap twos on. We're going to follow the highway. We'll back ourselves away so that we have some sound buffering. And then we'll just provide a nice road straight through here. And we want this to be very dense. So even though this is not very deep, we're going to go with it so that we maximize our buildable lots. Then we'll go right up here. And we're doing the same thing, trying to make sure that we're maximizing our density. And then providing a way in and out of this area. So it's fairly disconnected, and that's one of the ways that you can tell that this is a development by a different developer with a different purpose. So this will be a very different development to what we saw over there. The houses will be very compact and close to one another. Same story in this area, though they will spread out just a bit. And we'll meander this one around, work with our terrain rather than work against it, respecting our topography. Well, respecting our new topography. And now before we get too far here, I'm going to stop and come back to this area to give it some more thought. And now up here, what we're going to do is actually build in one of our mid-century modern parks. So we're going to add in the Mothership up here. This is going to help boost the land values up here. We'll have some parking nearby. And this will be a mid-century modern neighborhood, which I think is going to fit the idea of this being a little more upscale, ritzy, and it'll provide both homes for university professors and some of the folks associated with the stadium over here. So I think it's going to be a nice fit for this area, and it'll look different than everything else around here. So here is our connection down. We'll have our road coming right through here. And then we'll need to meet up with this road at a nice 90. And I do want to place our Mothership right off the bat so that we don't lose track of this. now that we've reoriented it, we're not on this collector. We have a local road. We could put some parking across the street from it, and we can make the terrain a little bit more gentle. There we go. We'll come back to this a little bit later on. I want to finish the layout of this area. So now we will loop this around again, trying to maintain our terrain here. So this is one of the ways that we're encouraging this to not be a primary road. So this would be an arterial if we just sent this straight down through here. It had a direct connection through here, or at least it might function as an arterial. But now that we're making it more indirect by having crossings with other roads, it's really showing that it's a collector. It will carry traffic, don't get me wrong. All right, through here, we're gonna send this road diagonally across. And then we'll have some local cul-de-sacs coming off from here in some areas. In other areas, just another road coming off here. Here, we're going to need to make our bridge. So this is the bridge that would be 50% funded by the county. And you see we have this nice curve down here. So I think that this is a very nice connection. This obviously, again, not the priority connection. If we would have made this connection here, that might have seemed like more of an arterial, but we have this linking up these two areas, carrying traffic between them, but not serving as a cut through. It's really linking up the two neighborhoods, not providing a regional connection through them. Now, this is interesting. I don't know why these rocks remain on the road, but we'll get rid of them. There we go. So now that we have this here, we need to think about some of the local roads. We've got them here a little bit, but over here we're missing them. So let's add in a few of these. These are going to be larger lots again, and we don't want to make a connection here. We're going to loop around so that we don't have a bunch of traffic going through this neighborhood, which will be primarily residential. So there we go. We are not going to have houses on both sides of this. We are having the road here so that we have lots here. And we'll have lots within here, but these will be one gigantic lot. We'll use fencing to solidify that. We're going to keep the fencing along this collector so that folks aren't forced to live on the collector, if that makes any sense. We'll send a road up here. We're going to use fencing along here to, again, prevent the housing from spawning on this road that is a very busy collector. And then along here, we're going to send a road up. And these will be some of the most exclusive homes in the entire neighborhood. There we go. We can't have a cul-de-sac, but we can do this. That's a vanilla limitation. I wish that we could have a cul-de-sac here with a mansion on the end, but we can't. This is what we can do, though, and I think it's pretty good. So think about the views you'd have from up here. Excellent views of the factory, but you also get some views of downtown. So that is incredible for these folks here. We're going to take this down so that you have the ability to actually see over this embankment here. The last thing you'd want would be an embankment blocking those views. Perfect. Looking good, feeling good about that. So now what we need to do is really think about some of our city services up here. So again, these are long roads and we have an opportunity to spread services out through here. So let's think about those services and see how our coverage is right now. So when we take a look, we can see that there's no healthcare coverage up here. Fire coverage is going to be pretty poor as well. Police coverage will also be bad. So we're going to need a place centrally located within here to have some of these uses so that we can have adequate coverage through here. Now, I'm thinking that this makes the most sense in this general area. You can kind of see it. If I were to place a police station right here, covers most of this area. Truthfully, this location is probably the very best, but it's way too valuable up here. And I think we'll see that if we take a look. Yeah, look at this. There's not a darn thing in this area and the land value is already high. So we're absolutely not going to be able to use this land. At least this over here, even though there's some value here, maybe we could justify it a little bit more. So these are going to be the first uses that we have after we place our water pipes underneath the road, right where they belong. And there we go, water pipes all over the place. So now we need to start thinking about some of our city services. Now, I think in an ideal world, this road was preserved for an extension up the hill, but I think that if we take a look at our contours, we'll see that that is, at best challenging. We're going to try it. Okay, this is very steep. This is not ideal. I'd love to fix this in Network Multi-Tool, but I cannot. That said, the reason why I'm adding this connection here, oh no, I took out their fence. They are not happy with that. That's okay. Little eminent domain on their fence, not their home, so they can't be that upset. There we go. So the reason this is so valuable, that's a very steep road, is we're going to have our city services here. So this will, at least now, if we take a look, we'll see some spread down this hill as well. I was thinking of having a path connection up here, but the road connection is honestly much better to provide that connectivity through. I think a school bus can now come down here if we needed it to transit in the future. So this is obviously a better solution. We're going to add in some of our city services. And again, those will be right along here. Let's convert our road up front though. And we're going to use just the normal road through here. Actually, we'll go with a wide sidewalk road. And the thought being there that there could be additional pedestrian activity. We're going to add some of our city serving uses. And I'm curious, did we add a post office down here? We did not. So we'll scoot this back. And I was going to place some of our vanilla buildings. But now that I think about it, I wonder if it makes more sense to, at least with maybe our police and fire, we use some of our new buildings from the seaside resorts, this historic fire station. I think that's the route that we'll go. And the nice thing is that these will fit a little bit nicer back here. We don't have a ton of space. So we'll just go with something small like this. And then again, we will add in our post office and kind of call it a day on city services over here. Sometimes less is more. And this will be one of those situations. There we go. We do have a parking lot over here. Obviously, this is not historic, and we are going to treat this like a suburban area, unfortunately, and have a whole bunch of parking. Now, through here, if we take a look at what we did over here, we've got lots of tree-lined streets, and that aesthetic will be required over here as well. So as this area is sold, I wouldn't at all put it past the original owners of the land to put in some design standards that they would require that new owners uphold. And part of that is the character of the neighborhood. Even if the lots are smaller and the design is different, the aesthetic could be the same. And in this case, the aesthetic that's the same that's being carried through will be some of the tree-lined streets. And then we're going to change things up here. This is a very important road. And I think that maybe one of the ways that we demonstrate that this area is different is that rather than having the tree-lined streets on the side, we have them in the middle. And interestingly, this is actually a bike path as well, which will tie nicely into the university. So initially I was going to use a fancy bridge across here, one of our nice bridges from our Bridges and Piers. The thing is, we lose our bike lanes then, and those mean a lot to me, so I'm going to leave those here. Not quite as attractive of a bridge, but from a utilitarian standpoint, being able to bike down here would be huge. And this area, truthfully, doesn't have a lot of bike connections anyway. So this would be the start of it, really the tip of the hat, that maybe this little community over here needs to start thinking about biking. It makes sense. This road, we're not going to have any bike lanes here, but we will have that tree-lined street with the trees in the center of the median. And then we've added wide sidewalks over here. Now, the main reason for that is I want to have parking over here. And if we're going to have parking over here, we're going to need to have wide sidewalks. Otherwise, folks will park on the road right here, which isn't what we want. So there's a couple of ways that we could go with the parking over here. We have not added any of the 1950s parking. And I was thinking of placing that here, but I've kind of gone back on that. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. You wouldn't see that covered parking at a restaurant like this necessarily. So even though we've got to use this somewhere, I think we're going to reserve it for when we place some of our hotel oases. And as a result, we will go back to Old Reliable, the custom parking lot assets that I created for Verde Beach. Those are going to look just fine here. So now you see the general layout for the neighborhood. We've got some of our city services, and we need to start thinking more about the parks for this area, because that's really what's going to raise the land values here. And that is going to matter a ton to us. For Frank to be able to recoup all of this infrastructure, look at all of the roads through here and really compare the number of roads to make this viable to make this viable. It's not even close. If we were to look at the mileage of roads here is through the roof. So to figure this out and make this a development that could actually pencil out in terms of the budget, we're going to need to do something to raise the value here so that each home and each lot sells for more. So we're going to look at our parks and really start to consider what parks would fit nicely in this area. And we're going to have some larger parks if we can fit them in. Okay, so we've added some parks through here. So you'd be able to walk to a park basically anywhere that you live over here. Now, in this area, we're adding some parks really close to the houses. Some of these parks very close to one another. And then we're going to add some parks along the water. The unfortunate thing is a lot of these parks, if we take a look, maybe a little bit too much. What we really want are some places to take in the views. So something more along the lines of these park piers. Now, these must be placed on the roadside. So I'm going to turn the contours and see how close I can get this road to be. And it'll be straight enough. There we go. Over here, it's just too tall unless we were to do a ton of grading to make this work. That would be basically the only way. We might give it a go. Let's give it a shot. We'll see if we can fit one down here. And I almost feel like I should have gone lower on this. So I'm going to get this as low as it will let me go. And there we go. Not perfect, but I think it's going to be perfectly good for us. So not the best view. Obviously, you're getting a view pretty far down, but you can go fishing from here at least. Well, some significant currents. So I guess your mileage may vary right here. That said, this will certainly help with our land value. So you start to see what we're working with. And I think it's starting to make some more sense. Okay, so now I want to just kind of add a couple of path connections if we can going down. So this will be a little bit of a trick and fix a couple of oddball things like this. Obviously, we don't want the park falling off the edge of the cliff. And then I want to look at our contours and see if there's a way that we can make a trail connection down here and up here. And I noticed something earlier that we need to take a look at. I added a tree here that made this viewing deck totally worthless. So let's get rid of that. Still not great, but maybe a little bit better. So through here, what I want to do is add in a connection. So I know you're probably excited to see this develop in, but I think we've got to continue our layout. This is the way it would work. The very first thing you do is you figure out the transportation network. I'm going to add this through here, and I just need a way to get up at some point. So we're going to grade a little bit higher to get up here. And right mouse click up here, left down here. And I wish I had an even smaller brush than this. Now in a modded game, you could absolutely do that. We don't really have that luxury here. That's okay. We'll just need to work with what we have. And then we're going to use some of our terrain conforming paths. So this is our nature reserve path. That will allow us to have a really nice looking path along here without doing all that much more grading than we're already doing. I'll turn on angle only. And we'll have a connection right there. So we'll still continue to have our paved path down here, but now we have a new one that comes up here and provides an interesting connection up here. And I want to mirror this connection going down as well. So this is going to be a bit of a trick. I think that this is one of those scenarios where maybe we just give it a shot with our self-leveling paths. That's why we're using these anyway. And we'll see if it allows us to make a connection that is at least a little bit reasonable. There we go. Nice slopes coming down there. And a nice connection right here too. Things don't look all that wonky. I'm feeling good about it. I'm feeling really good about that. This is very, very steep. And I am curious. Yeah, it kind of raises up here. So we might move this connection back just a little ways. There we go. So now we haven't disrupted the backyards. There's no arbitrary hump up here. We're coming in at a nice angle. So I feel like this at least looks like someone put a little bit of thought and care into this, didn't disrupt properties, no eminent domain to make this happen. This is just a lot of grading. So this is a valuable amenity for this area though, and we could certainly add in, we'll expand some of our parks and add in some more amenities to see down and continuing to increase the property values. That said, let's see where we end up first after we change our theme for this area. So now that we've got this mostly figured out, I don't want to start zoning and have this build in a bunch of normal international housing or whatever. We want to make sure that this is developing as the neighborhood that we want it to be up front. So we'll extend this area out, take phase 5 and change the default style to mid-century modern. And now those are the buildings that are going to spring up here. So we're ready to finally get building, and we're going to make sure that we don't just wholesale zone this entire area. We're going to be thoughtful about the way that we're zoning. And in fact, we're going to need to even add our fences first. So let's do that. We're going to go through and add in some of our larger fences so that there's a little bit more privacy here. I think the forestry fence is a very good one for this. It feels like a privacy fence. So we'll go through and add that along here. Now in this area, I mentioned we're going to make sure that we have large lots. And on this other side, we're going to use a nature reserve fence just to ensure that people aren't falling off the cliff. Okay, so now we have some decent lot sizes along here. We can add a couple, and you can see that as we start to parcel this out, you don't have nearly as many lots as maybe you thought you might. So that's one of the things. That's why this is such an expensive development. Okay, so now what I've tried to do here is clean things up a bit with our fencing. So right here, it's to prevent people from falling off, ensure that we are not over zoning and really causing some unique challenges with our terrain. We're going to do the same thing in some of these areas as well. You can see that the cliff drops off a bit. We have one of two solutions here, and I think that this is maybe one where we build this up a little bit, and then we add in some fencing back here just to make sure that we don't overzone inadvertently. We call it a little bit of a mulligan on our old lots, make them even bigger. And we'll get rid of these trees as well and extend these out. Now, this is a park, so we'll open it up here and add in a pedestrian connection. So that'll be a really valuable connection to have in this area. And we'll connect on both sides to make it feel like this park extends all the way back. Right mouse click up here, left down here, and slope this up a little bit more to make that a little bit more gradual of a connection. Perfect. So over here, you might have noticed I placed parks at the end of these roads. I really wanted that vista, instead of terminating on this road at the highway, we'll terminate it at a park, and then we'll add lots of landscaping behind here to try to make it feel a little bit better. And now I believe that we are finally ready to add in some of our zoning. So along here, you're going to start to see this main street break down a little bit. And once we get through this area, it'll be very minimal. So rather than having the 4U buildings, we're going to go back. We'll go back 4 here. And then as we get further in over here, we'll go 2 to maximize the amount of space that we have for our residential uses. And actually on this side, it's not going to benefit us at all to prevent this from being wider. So we'll allow them to be bigger on this side. And in this part of the area, we're going to maximize our density. So we're basically going to zone every square inch of this as we can. Now, when we get over here, we're going to be very deliberate with our choices. But in this area, not so much. We just want to make sure that we are getting as much money as we can. This is going to be Mr. Kittleson's way of ensuring that he has the highest return on his investment as he can get. Okay, so I've done a couple of unique things over here. First of all, this little area right here, we're leaving it basically wide open so that we're not developing this little cliff all that much. We will add some landscaping through here to hide those contour lines. It's just not developable without a lot of grading. And I think that in the game, the easiest way to handle this is just to avoid it. In reality, there would likely be lots of terracing and building up. We just don't have that luxury in a vanilla game. Now, through here, this is a 4-unit wide block. So I want to have some smaller homes through here, increase the density in that way. So that'll be a way that we can maximize what we're doing over here. While this fills in, we'll move on over here, and it's more of the same. The one thing I was thinking about is, would there be a way to bring a path connection down here? And I do think that we have one area where we can make it happen. We're going to use our self-leveling paths through here to make it work. Again, we'll use the same one that we were using, our nature reserve path. And we're likely going to have to meander this down to make it work, unless we go through our park, which is certainly a possibility. Okay, and with this park, what we've done is we've really tried to get this to blend in and terraform with its terrain. So I've sloped it from the top all the way down, making sure that the center where we have this fountain is flat so you could come up and observe the fountain, but still come right down here. Now, we don't have any connections down here, so that's something to be aware of. If we're going to have this here, we really need to make sure that there's a way to access it, at least in my opinion. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And of course, it's not going to allow us to do this unless we back it up a little ways. So we'll call a bit of a mulligan, back this up 1 tile. And this has actually done 2 things for us. It allows us to extend up our commercial uses and then have a nice little cut through here to reach this area. So that it'll feel really nice and unique in this particular area. I like it. I like it a lot. Now let's continue to smooth some of this out. And this is really the trick with areas like this, is to not ever give up on your terrain. Wait till your buildings come in and then flatten it out afterwards to make it feel like it was meant to be this way. So, and then in case we have this where it just didn't work out, don't be afraid to just say no and not develop the area. That's totally acceptable. And then along all of these new cliffs and ridges, if we end up not developing there, if we end up leaving the slopes as they are, I want to remove all the palm trees. They look very unnatural when they are set up this way. I mean, if you look at this, just a palm tree coming out the side of a cliff, it looks very strange. So we'll get rid of some of these. We will add in some of our favorite. There are two approaches that we could do in vanilla. We obviously have been building a lot of rock retaining walls. They look really nice. At the same time, they're very finicky. And I don't think it's the cheapest treatment. The cheapest treatment would be to add some sort of vegetation. So I think in this particular area, we're probably going to do that. It seems to me to be the most cost-effective and logical treatment. So we'll go that way. And I'm guessing that that is how Mr. Kittleson would like to go. And through here are a little bit of a commercial area. And then again, dense residential uses all the way through here. And then at the end of this cul-de-sac, I can't place a building in vanilla, but I can place a gazebo, which I think looks pretty nice. So I'm going to place this here. I'm going to rotate it so that it is facing the end of the cul-de-sac. So at least it feels like at the end of the cul-de-sac, there's a reason for this existing. It's a park space. It'll raise the land values and it will look nice. So this is all zoned in, and you can see our residential demand has just plummeted, but it's going to keep coming back. Remember that this is really a function of having a whole bunch zoned in. It's going to keep rebounding as these buildings develop, so I'm not overly concerned. Here, we're going to try to get 4-unit buildings as often as we can. That will be the name of the game. Where we can't, we'll go for 3, and then if we can't do that, obviously 2. Nothing smaller than that. Now this is interesting. You see that it's just not going all the way back, and I think the problem here is that when we upgraded, or when we got this fence here, it's not recognizing it. So I'm just going to upgrade this road, or I should say downgrade it and then upgrade it. And now it's fixed our zoning pads, and we can fit this in the way that we wanted to, which is having 4 units all the way back. And then last but not least, we have this area over here. For the most part, we're not going to zone around here or along this road. We're just going to have some larger buildings over here. There we go. So for the most part, all of our zoning is figured out here. We're likely to add a gazebo down here as well. I think that if we can do anything to maximize our land, we should do it. And then over here, I want to do something special. So what we're going to do is go into our unique buildings and find our lungs of the city. So this to me would fit really nicely through here. Camp, take in the views of, well, I guess that. We could place it this way as well. And that might actually work the best for us. But just try to use this land to be something that will, once again, spread value over here, be a nice amenity for the community, and still maybe not completely be out of touch with this area. And then through here, I'm just going to run some paths down here. Nothing elaborate, just a place where you could come down and take a look. And then we've got to jump power across. And this is going to be a little bit of a trick, but I do not want to run a line if at all possible. I'm going to see if we could potentially jump power with an earthquake sensor. And if we didn't jump there, I don't know where we do. And that is quite unfortunately not going to work for us. So we've got to get creative with our solution here. So our solution would be something similar to this, which is kind of extreme, or simply adding a power line. We're likely going to add that power line. It just stinks. This is one of those things that I wish were not the case. Or I wish I had a small transformer just to generate a little bit of power here. But we'll at least place it fairly low. And hopefully this will be enough. Once we have some development here to get this down, it's probably not going to be. There we go. That'll make everything jump. Got our power lines down there. And once this connects up, which I believe it will shortly, will be in a good place. So I'm going to let this fill in, and then we will do a bit of landscaping. Okay, so that fire was absolutely epic over at the stadium. Maybe that's why we're not filling in quite as quickly as we'd hope, because all of the folks at the stadium were busy worrying about the stadium being saved and not about buying a new house. All of that said, we can start to see that this neighborhood has made some very good progress towards filling in. So we've got to make a couple of fixes in this area because now we can see that the grading is a little bit off. So we're going to fix our grading and then add in a bunch of landscaping. The very first thing I want to do is start out with some of our high vegetation, and I want to place that along some of these cliff sides. This would be an erosion nightmare, so we are going to absolutely make sure that we don't have erosion causing mudslides in this area. And we're also going to come through with our palm trees, and what we used, actually, I'm using the wrong ones. We used, I believe it's the date palms before. Let's just grab these and sprinkle these through here, and by sprinkle, I mean just douse the area with palm trees. There we go. And now we will continue trying to ensure that we don't have significant erosion issues. Now again, these are just areas where we have these large cliff faces. If we can prevent these at all by turning our contours on and smoothing these out, that is the way that I would prefer to go. But in some of these cases, it's just not going to be possible. This is one of those cases over by the high school. This area though, we should be able to come through and knock this down a bit. We've got to turn down our game speed. And what I'm doing here is I just level this over here a bit and then make sure I don't get all the way to the road and just flatten this out. You can get a nice smooth grading if you do that. Just stay away from the road as best you can. Now this is going to be a challenging spot because we've got this leveling path. So we're going to need to likely level along here, and it's going to create a large cliffside, and that's okay. And that was some landscaping, and we've gone through and done a lot all over the place. In this particular area, I wanted to make sure that we had giant redwoods planted throughout so that the lungs of the city doesn't look totally out of place. So it's as if someone went and planted a bunch of redwoods on this island as a little bit of a nature preserve for this type of tree. Through the rest of this area, I've tried to sprinkle in a lot of landscaping, really mix it up, and try to separate some of the lots with landscaping, not to overdo it. And as we get deeper into the community, rather than views being what you have, a little bit of nature is what you have. So if you're in this house right here, the reason why you like this house so much is that it feels like you're in a forest. So this is a really nice amenity here, nice deep lot into this cliffside. So a lot of privacy. This would be a nice place to live, nice place to exist in the community. And you have close proximity to the stadium, which is now almost fully recovered. Well, halfway there. We're getting there. Nothing totally burnt down. So I think that we have created a nice little community here. We've certainly got some traffic backing up as people are moving in, but we need to take inventory of what we've done and enjoy this a little bit and have a brief city tour. And you can see that it's a really striking area. All the terraforming made this feel like it's a little bit more plausible. The buildings don't jet out and look crazy, and there's a logic to all of this that I think makes some sense. Now, I am very curious. We've done a lot here to try to improve the land values, but we haven't taken a look yet at what the land value looks like. So I'm really hoping that things are where we wanted them to be. We'll take a look at a couple of houses just to see where we're at. Level 1, not great. Then again, we haven't let this simulate all that long, so that might improve over time. Level 1 for many of these, but let's look at our land value. Woo! That is absolutely through the roof along the coast right here. A little lower here than I would hope. Now, the really interesting thing to me is that we've got a little node of high land values over here as well. So perhaps Mr. Kittleson wasn't developing everything that he should have been developing, because this area right here near the school, near all of these parks, also very high land value. That said, he would have sold all of these lots individually to different home builders in an effort to raise the capital necessary for this area, and I think it would have really been a successful development. So I think that we're in a good place here. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit the like button. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I really can't wait to see you in the next one. It's a privilege to be able to bring these videos to you. Take care. Bye-bye.